Welcome to Freeze Your Milk Podcast. I'm your host, Bridget, along with my husband, Chris. Podcast where we talk about the comedic side and serious side of parenting, life, and relationships. We are boy parents. We have two boys, Enzo and Rhett, with about a 6-year age gap between the two. You can check out our website, freezermilk.com. Also, feel free to follow us on Instagram at Freeze Your Milk Podcast. Thanks and hope you enjoy.
Hey.
Another week. No baby yet.
No baby yet. It's been a push for sure. How you feeling?
I'm just ready to have a baby.
Yeah, you always get to that last point where you can tell you're just fried. I think all women go through it. You get to the last month where you're just ready for this to happen. I think your body's telling you that you're ready, you don't want to do it anymore. And
even you said, yesterday? You're your stomach's really hard. Mm-hmm. It's just uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm sure it is at this point.
Yeah.
But
making progress.
Yeah, you are making progress. You've gotten a couple checkups and your body's doing what it needs to be doing, which is good.
I'm more dilated at this point than I've ever been at this point in my previous pregnancies.
I don't know if we've talked about the fact that this is going to be our last, child. Probably not. But what are your feelings and thoughts on that?
Oh man, trying to get my hormones going. Gonna make me cry again. Ugh, fucking hormones. I cry all the time now. It's terrible. I'm just trying to savor everything and
slow it down a little bit.
Slow it down as far as hey, I want to remember this moment and, make a memory out of this moment because this is, hypothetically the last time that we will be pregnant. Mm-hmm. And my belly won't be this big again from pregnancy and we won't feel a baby moving and being crazy inside and
alienistic
and my whole belly looks creepy and nauseating when it flips and flops with his crazy moves. But even just, you getting to touch my belly or talk to my belly or, anything like that, that won't happen again.
Yeah. Well, you said hypothetically, but we've already taken steps to kind of make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's not a guaranteed thing.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
So we talked a lot back and forth about, eventually, after this baby, what kind of birth control we want to use and whatnot. And do we want to try for a fourth or are we good at 3? And I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah, you were already considered a geriatric pregnancy. I remember when the doctors told you that.
Yeah.
That was funny.
I feel like 3 is enough. I feel, good with 3.
Considering you weren't even technically, medically speaking, you weren't supposed to have 1.
Yeah, and it's been a tough 2 years. I've had 4 pregnancies in 2 years.
Yeah.
I've had, once this one is born, I'll have had 2 successful births, and we had 2 miscarriages. That's just a lot on my body.
Yeah.
And the first 16 weeks of pregnancy is a lot on me. I get very sick. Mm-hmm. And it's not fun. So I think, we're done. We talked about different birth control options and we decided that we're going to pursue the vasectomy route.
Yeah. Well, we decided. Talk about the most uncomfortable experience of my life. I'll tell you that right now.
Can I just, this is the funniest part to me, is your experience and then my view as a female of your experience.
My experience is that I selected to make this appointment. I went to this appointment. You went with me. And to be honest with you, I don't know what I was expecting. But what happened was not what I was expecting.
It was a consult. It wasn't the procedure.
No, this was consult only. I've got the procedure scheduled for next month. But this was consult only. Uh-huh. And I was, normal, you walk in, they take your vitals and, get your weight, get your height.
Go in an exam room.
They talk to you a little bit. But I talk to this guy, this little Asian guy that's supposed to be one of the best in the valley that does these things, and he comes in he wasn't in there 5 minutes, and he goes, stand up, and I'm like, okay, so he's gonna like, you know, check my height and shit like that, and no, he goes, pull down your pants, and I'm like, what? You know, because this isn't something, you know, as a guy.
He's a urologist. Like, this is what he does all day, every day.
As a guy, like...
According to him, he did 27 vasectomies that previous Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, he's very, very familiar with, you know...
What he's doing.
I'm not. You know, as a guy, like, the only time we got physicals was sports physicals. And that was a long time ago for me. So, to have a guy, you know, middle-aged guy, Asian guy...
Who's sitting at a stool, eyeball height,
with gloves on and cold hands, caressing my ball sack, was very uncomfortable to me.
You skipped the funniest part. He says, "Okay, drop your pants." You drop your pants, but you leave your underwear on. And he's like, "No, underwear too." You were just like, okay.
I kind of just froze in time. I wasn't, you know, it was just very, very unsettling to me to go through that. Like, I mean, I've been through physicals, I've done sports physicals and the cough, but man, I wasn't prepared for it, and I don't know why. Knowing that knowing that a vasectomy, you know, they do an incision.
I don't think I've ever seen you be so awkward, uncomfortable.
Oh, it just threw me for a loop. I wasn't prepared for it at all, and I don't know why. I don't think mentally I prepared myself for the fact that could happen. Like, it would have been fine. Like, it's not a big deal. Again, I've done physicals before, but, you know.
As a female, this is the sad part. As a female, at any doctor that's not, like, a sinus or ear, nose, and throat, you just assume my boobs will get felt and my vagina will get looked at or hands inserted inside of me. Like, that just happens. That's
unbelievable to me. Yeah, and I've been there when they've done it to you. But, like, for me, I was just kind of like, holy shit, like, this is happening.
My private parts aren't private?
Yeah.
With me, they're like... So that afternoon, they were checking me for my appointment. And she's like, oh, like, your cervix is kind of far back. Let me pull it forward real quick. Our doula was with me at the appointment, and she was like watching me, and she's like, oh, because this midwife she's in there, and she has put her fingers in my cervix and is yanking my cervix forward.
Nope. Just very uncomfortable.
Like, and I just laid there like, this is kind of par for the course. Like, I've given birth 2 other times. I've had, you know, procedures. I've had, you know, people stick their hands in vaginas in the medical community. It's what happens. Meanwhile, you're like, what? Drop my underwear too?
I'm like, you can't see it through my my underwear.
You want to fondle my heaven forbid they need to yank your cervix forward.
Oh God, I could, and that's what I told you. I was like, I would never want to be a female ever. Like, I couldn't do it. At least mine's on the outside, you know. They don't have to go like inside me. So it was a very uncomfortable, unpleasant afternoon. Doctor was great. Don't get me wrong.
Doctor was great. Practice was great.
But it was just I wasn't mentally prepared for all of it.
It's so funny because you get really flustered if things happen out of left field that you weren't expecting.
Oh yeah. Like, I don't like to be surprised.
No, you get very flustered. It's interesting.
That was one of those moments where I kind of just froze. I didn't know what to do. I was like,
you didn't drop your underwear until he told you no underwear too.
I'm like, this is going on. Okay. So awkward. That's the word that describes that interaction. And it wasn't the doctor that made it awkward. It was just completely.
You made it awkward.
It was me. Like, I made it so fucking awkward. I feel bad for the doctor. I'm like, man,
I got complimented when we were there.
Yeah, you did.
You remember what he said?
Yeah, because he's like, are you guys... Their first question they ask you is, you know, why are you doing this? How many kids do you have?
Yeah, because they want to make sure...
They want to make sure that you really know that this is permanent. Like, this isn't something that you can reverse. I mean, if you can't, you can, but it's expensive, and it's probably pretty... Not guaranteed. It's pretty painful, et cetera, et cetera. So they want to make sure. And I said, like, how many kids you had? I said, I have a stepson who's almost 8 years old, and then I've got a biological 2-year-old, and then I've got another one on the way. And he's like...
No, you said I have one due next week.
Or I go, yeah, I have one that's due next week. And he's like,
He like looked at me.
He looked at Bridget and was like, "You're pregnant?"
Because I was sitting down. I had a baggy sweatshirt on.
I was like, "Let her stand up." So,
I stood up. He was like, "Oh yeah, you're definitely ready, but like you really don't look that pregnant."
And that's what I've been telling you this whole pregnancy. It wasn't anything like Rhett. You were so bloated with Rhett. You haven't gotten like that this one. This one, you got a belly. That's about it. It looks like you've had like a bunch of beer or something. But anyway, it was a shit show. Let's put it that way. And I'm the one that made it a shit show. So
I was cracking up in the background.
I'm glad you had fun. You were sitting behind me while I pulled down my pants. I'm like...
I
don't know what was more uncomfortable. The fact that you were behind me and I had to pull down my pants and this doctor was in front of me. I'm like, this is just not cool. Like, I don't want to be doing this. I'm like, next time you're staying home.
I was cracking up just because, again, like, I mean, you've been with me at, different OB appointments and have seen the level of, intrusion. Yeah. That happens.
It's just different when it's happening to somebody else. And when it happens to you, you're like, I feel violated.
What's really funny? I saw a post about it. And it's so fucking true. Majority, I would go so far to say all women, but I know there's some outliers. But basically, all women hide their underwear at an OB appointment.
They hide their underwear?
So they always tell, here's a drape, undressed from the waist down. And every single woman, myself included, will put our pants on the chair and then like hide our underwear under the pants or like...
Why?
I don't know. It's this weird thing that like at a subconscious level, we just don't like, oh, I can't have my underwear be seen. That's weird. Even though you're about to like examine my vagina up close and personal. We hide our underwear. Isn't that so funny?
That is kind of weird.
Yeah. I was thinking about that because I read a post about it and I was like... Yeah, I do it too. Like, it's just ingrained in you, like a subconscious thing. To like, oh, I can't have my underwear just out there willy-nilly, like on the chair. Like, let me tuck it like in my pants or under
Meanwhile, you could be in the stirrup spread eagle and...
Right! They have like a flashlight.
Yeah, they're like really up in there. I'm like, holy shit.
Here's some uncomfortable pressure.
Yeah, try this out. How's this feel? I don't know. It was interesting. So next month I got to do it all over again. That'll be fun. Fortunately, they give me laughing gas, so hopefully I won't remember any of it.
Yeah.
But I was talking to my sister about it today, and I was telling her that I'm getting this scheduled and all this stuff, and she's like, "Oh, her husband had to do it as well," and she said it's basically like you get kicked in the balls a couple times. I'm like, "Oh, this is really setting me up for confidence here, and this is really what I want to do."
Her husband didn't have it done by your doctor.
That's true. This guy's supposed to be one of the best in the valley. So
it's a non-scalpel. It's like it's a punch.
Oh God! I'm gonna take a fucking paper punch and just fucking.
No, it reminded me of like what a dermatologist would do.
Yeah.
Like they do like a skin punch. It's very similar, and it's versus a scalpel. It's a much easier thing to heal from because it's much smaller. So.
You'll see.
Yeah.
Everybody that comes out, I mean, he does 27 of them in a day. So on a Saturday, it's just like another Saturday to him. Right. Like everybody else.
He's like, they take 10 minutes.
Everybody else is setting up their Christmas lights, and he's out there fucking doing his vasectomies. So.
Making hand over fist.
Yeah, making tons of cash. Well, anyway, I don't know. What else happened this week? We're in the process of getting Enzo into some counseling.
Yeah.
That was interesting in itself. So we had our first counseling session with his counselor.
Yeah. Essentially. That was tough.
That was tough.
So, Enzo's dad has never been on board with counseling, and then finally in the last 12 months decided that he would be okay with it for Enzo. And he had said, like, if it's on your dime and your time. And I was like, that's totally fine. Like, I feel like it is super beneficial to, every kid. I feel like every person could benefit from counseling, just learning more about handling their emotions and communicating effectively and all of it. And so I let him know, like, hey, this is who I have him scheduled with. Here's the intake forms. I have a meeting with him before Enzo meets him to just kind of talk about what my goals are and this and that. And he goes, oh, well, I want to be on the call. And I didn't.
That sit well with you.
I didn't react well to that.
No.
I think twofold. Like, I felt I can't be open about
Yeah, I mean, your guard's completely it's still up with him.
Oh, 110%. 110%. I think anyone that's been in like a domestic violence, abusive situation is always going to have their guard up.
Yeah.
They never will fully trust the person that caused harm and trauma to them.
Yeah.
So I was like, I like cried about it too, because I was like, and then he was like, oh, his wife's gonna be on the call and she's super nice, but I was like, I don't feel comfortable now with them on the call telling the counselor, like, hey, these are why we don't co-parent effectively, and these are why we don't know what happens at the other person's house, and these are why, we don't have the same rules and the same structure at each house.
Yeah, it's completely different.
It is.
And it's hard on him because he doesn't, any given day, he doesn't really know.
But like all of that stems back to there's zero trust between us because of how bad everything was in our relationship. And it was a, abusive situation.
Yeah.
But I don't feel comfortable saying any of that on a Zoom call with him and his wife on the same call at the same time. Like, that's dead. I know. Nope. There's lines that I can't do it. I'm not comfortable.
Well, and it's hard when one of the parties sees it differently, and it says that he's experiencing different behaviors than what we're experiencing. We know what we experience here at the house with Enzo and how he behaves and what we see and what we feel. We're pretty in tune with that because I come from a very depressed family, very, very depressed family. Like, there's depression runs rampant in my family. You do.
Yep.
Like, we understand
both of our
signs.
families have been affected by suicide.
Yeah, I mean, we understand the signs, and we don't want that. So, but that's not something that the other party agrees on as far as seeing that. Well, whether he does or he doesn't, he tells us that he doesn't. So
yeah,
it really doesn't matter. So I think it makes it difficult to have that conversation because you're always worried in the background that, they're going to be like, oh, well, no, that's not happening here.
Must be a you problem.
Yeah, that's a you thing. And, just kind of, I'm not the issue.
I'll never heal from the trauma and the threat of him when we were first divorcing, saying, I'm going to do everything in my power to take away your son because I know he matters to you.
Yeah.
And I probably, even after Enzo's 18, will still not feel great about that. But that stuck with me, and I don't think I can ever necessarily move past that. Can't be undone.
That's one of those things that you just don't say.
No, it's a verbal grenade. You can't undo the damage done with it.
Yeah.
And so that always has put me on edge and on guard. And that's where I'm like, I don't want to disclose what happens on my end. And I don't want to disclose, if I'm seeing behaviors in Enzo and you aren't, like, I don't need to give you any ammunition whatsoever.
Right.
To ever try to take my kid away from me.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That's why you've always helicoptered.
Yeah.
You're a helicopter parent when it comes to Enzo, and that's a lot of the reason why you didn't want him to get hurt. You didn't want something to happen on your watch. You don't want the shit to happen regardless, but especially on your watch because that's just.
Yep.
But I mean,
it's tough. So
we discussed it. We discussed splitting the time slot.
Yeah, I reached out to the counselor and I explained to the counselor and I was like, hey, I don't feel comfortable being open and honest with the person that has caused me a lot of pain and trauma on the same call. So we have an hour scheduled. Can we split it into 2 30 minutes? And he was like, yeah, totally. So I told Enzo's dad, like, hey, to make it easier so that he can concentrate on what, each parent is seeing at their households, we're going to just do 2 30-minute sessions. Mm. His dad in true form was all interesting, ... And I was like, yep. Guess you don't love that you can't control the narrative of what I'm going to say. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what he was trying to do. But
yep. It's just, it's in line with his behaviors and who he is.
So, but we had a pretty, insightful and a good conversation with the doc. And I think both parents, and again, we gave to his dad's credit, like, he was willing to do this.
Yes.
That's a huge step. And I commend him for that because if my sons ever need that kind of help, Absolutely.
Yep.
Like, I'm a firm believer in it. Like, it
was
helps
a
you
big
to make
step
yourself
for him
better.
to finally say, like, hey, you know what, maybe this is a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, Enzo's behaviors are not, like, so off the wall that I'm like, what'd you say? He's not skinning bunnies or something,
Right.
whatever,
He's not cutting the heads off stuffed animals.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm like,
And the
right.
therapist said the same thing. He was like, look, like, there's no behavior that you guys have expressed to me so far that is alarming.
Yeah.
Where I feel like I need to meet weekly with him.
More or less, it's just processing emotion and
recognizing emotion and learning how to process and communicate them.
Right. So, I mean, all in all, it was a good call, and it's hard because Enzo's at an age, again, at his dad's house, he is an only kid.
Yeah.
At our house, he is not. And he's at an age where he doesn't want to talk to us about what's going on in his head. It's not that he doesn't want to talk to us. I think it's that he doesn't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And he doesn't understand the feelings, and partially because he doesn't want to be criticized by us. He doesn't want to be, he doesn't want to feel like we're attacking him or any way. So we want to put him in a safe space so that he has somebody he can talk to. We're hoping it works out. I mean...
Yeah, because he could get on a call with him and not say a word.
Yeah, and that's very, very, very plausible, and then we might have to figure out something else. But I think it was one thing that I always hoped that my parents would have done for me when I was younger. Now that I'm older, put me in counseling, because going through everything that I was going through with my parents, the family, and everything, I really needed counseling, and it really showed later in my life.
What's interesting is in my life growing up, my mom wanted me in counseling because she didn't like that I wasn't an easy child. I didn't fall in line and obey the rules. And I went to 2 different counselors, and according to my extended family, I'll never hear the true story from my mom or dad, but according to my extended family, the counselors basically told my mom, like, she needed to change.
Your mom needed to change?
Yeah.
Your daughter's not the problem, it's you.
Right.
Well, that's very, that could happen to us.
It could.
Hey, you guys are being a little,
we're strict.
We are stricter parents. We believe in structure here.
And they could say, like, hey, you need to let up a little bit, or you need to give him a day or two to transition to your house before you
set him back into his schedule. And because we have a schedule here, like, for him. I mean, it's not written down or anything, but we have a schedule for him. Like, you keep to your schedule, and
we have expectations of, like, your
chores, and
make your bed, brush
we're
your
trying
teeth,
to teach him the responsibility
put
of
your laundry in the laundry room.
I mean, his chores aren't that big of chores. Like, I'm not asking him to clean the house, like, but we want him to make his bed. I want him to bring his dirty clothes up to the laundry room at the end of the week. I want him to put his clean clothes away. You clean your bathroom, stuff like that, like small stuff, just to teach him the responsibility, and
what could be hard, though, is that, and the therapist kind of brought it up too, is he was like, eventually I need to pull all of you on a call together, because we need to establish structure between both households, where he has a set bedtime at both households at the same time.
I think that's off. Like, he doesn't go to bed.
He doesn't know.
We put him to bed a little bit earlier, I think.
Yeah. And, like, he needs to have the same types of discipline at each house, and he needs to have the same amount of screen time at each house. And
yeah, and we definitely don't do that. We don't give him a ton of screen time.
No,
anymore.
we used to back in the day, but not anymore.
Right.
And probably something along the lines of, like, chore expectations should be similar at each house.
Which I don't know what kind of chores he's doing at his dad's. So, but again, it's not an open line of communication between exes and parents and biological parents. Like, you guys don't see eye to eye. You don't get along on that type of level.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have to, like, really dig down and push that shit aside and, like, really just focus on that. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say.
I don't know what the answer is.
I don't either.
At the end of the day, like, we'll either decide that we can get on the same page at both houses, or we'll talk with a therapist about how do we make it work with what we got.
Yeah.
If we can't come to that, what's the next best thing?
Yeah.
How do we make it better for Enzo than it currently is?
All in all, Enzo is a great kid, and he listens very well. He's very emotional. He's a little, like, as my dad would say, soft, but he is awesome, like a great kid, and he listens, and he doesn't really
I always
get in trouble.
describe him as like he has the biggest heart, and so that causes him to be softer and more emotional because he loves and feels very deeply. I'm
very curious what Rhett is going to be, because I think he's going to be a spinning like image of how how Enzo acts, and I think that Arlo will be like probably a lot different.
You think Rhett's going to be like Enzo?
No, I think he's going to be different.
Oh, you said spitting image.
Then I think he's going to be the complete opposite.
Oh, okay.
And he's probably going to be. He already, is hurt. Hurts himself and runs into shit. It shakes it off.
But Rhett does also love pretty deeply too.
Yes, he does.
Like he is so cute. He like loves to give people hugs that he knows and cares about. He doesn't hug easily to other people, but the people in his life that he loves and cares about, he hugs and he'll like pat their back.
Yeah.
While he's hugging them, which I find so funny. Like he's just like, oh, nice pats. Or like he loves his brother. Like he loves Enzo. And like we'll give Enzo kisses and Enzo's like, oh, he kissed me on my mouth. Like, so it's interesting because he's definitely more rough and tumble as a kid, like a toddler already. He's super rough and tumble, but he also is like very loving and like snuggles and wants to give out hugs and kisses and blow kisses and, sit on people's lap. And
so it'll be interesting to see what like Arlo is like when he goes out, but I don't know. We'll see.
It'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, we got to go out on a little bit of a date tonight. We took the baby and I put him in his PJs and we ordered some Starbucks dairy-free hot chocolates.
Yeah.
And we decided to go drive around and look at Christmas lights. And what was your question to me while we were out looking at Christmas lights?
Why don't you like to decorate?
Why don't I like to decorate? Because we're seeing all these houses that are done up to the nines, just like thousands upon thousands of lights, and I'm just...
And who immediately got defensive?
I did, absolutely, because I did it on two of our...
You get defensive at everything.
I did it on two of our houses, and...
Correction. I said, why don't you like to decorate? You immediately received that as, why are you putting up lights on the roof line? Like, that's what Bridget wants to know.
Yep.
And that's not what I was asking. I said, why don't you like to decorate?
Which I put out projectors. I put out two projectors.
Are they even on?
Yeah, they're on a timer.
What time do they come on?
I don't know. The remotes don't work. They come on when they want to come on.
I'm like, I haven't seen them.
Middle of the day.
Right. No,
so I put out two projectors.
Like I was thinking more like the deer, the like Christmas light deer.
Because we don't have any.
I know, but you've never seemed to express interest in getting that stuff.
If you buy them, you've heard the saying, if you build it, they will come. So if you buy them, I will put them out. I'm not going to go out to Home Depot and buy the damn deer or the inflatables. We bought Halloween decorations. I put Halloween decorations out, did I not?
You did.
We have Christmas lights. The only Christmas lights we have are for the roof line, and I'm not doing it. I did it on the last two houses, and I'm just not doing it. For anybody that does it, more power to you. That's fantastic.
We have tall roof lines here in Arizona for single stories. We should probably preface by saying that because it's not like a rancher like back east.
Yeah,
we have tall roof lines.
Yeah, I mean, I could do it, and I can do it in a couple hours, but I just
hate it with a passion.
I don't like it. I don't want to be doing that. I've been in construction my entire life. I've been on ladders my entire life. I just don't want to do it. So if you want to go out and buy deer, I'll do my projectors. I'll put them on a timer. I put the tree up. Here we are. That's what you get.
I'll look at some deer. But it was just funny because you immediately got so defensive. And I was like, that's not even what I was asking. I didn't ask, why don't you put the roofline lights up? I already know why you don't put them up. You don't fucking like doing it. It's fine. I didn't ask you to do it.
These people that do this is just unbelievable to me. We see these houses. They got to take weekends to do all of these decorations. It's unbelievable. We go through neighborhoods and every house is just completely... It looks like a fucking fairy farted and just blew out lights.
I'm surprised you haven't done the PVC tunnel thing.
Oh, God. No. Do you see anybody else in the neighborhood doing it?
Well, it's basically the first Christmas in the neighborhood.
That's an investment, man. To go into this and build, buy all the... I mean, the PVC is cheap, but, you could go in and do this, but I'm like, come on. You have been pregnant the last
I know. This is not our year for decorations.
Our entire relationship, you've been pregnant.
Oh,
I'm
MG.
I'm like, I'm not.
I just give babies to everybody.
Yeah, yeah, according to Enzo. But the fact of the matter is you're about to have a baby. Do the 20th. Like, I'm going to be dealing with a newborn, a 2-year-old, an 8-year-old, and you postpartum, and then come January, I got to take the lights back down. Like, I don't know. No. Anyway, you get your projectors. I can pull those out of the ground, throw them in the box, and put away Christmas next year. We're good.
We used to have the 2 little trees that lit up, and then the reef on the front door needs new batteries, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't even light up. But you can see it from the street, which is nice. It does need some batteries, though.
But we used to have those 2 little trees in the planters.
Yeah, but it rained one day and filled up with water, and they got all moldy.
Yeah.
We're not keeping these.
We had them they had a good run.
Yeah. I don't know.
They were like an easy little decoration, though.
I got your Christmas tree up in October.
I know.
At your request. It's been up forever. I'm ready for it to go down because all the baby does is try and pick at it, pull it apart, and knock it down. I don't know how many times he climbs behind the damn thing and tries to pull lights out of it. I'm like, man.
Speaking of the baby, holy talking.
Oh yeah, over the last 2 weeks maybe?
Maybe, not
he's
even.
Just started formulating sentences, but you can't understand it. But he's talking to you, he's having a full conversation, you're supposed to understand. And I'm just
what did we catch him saying the other day? We were like, oh.
You actually said something.
We were in his room and you picked up one of his building blocks, and he's like, put that down. And we're like,
what?
Did he just say put that down?
Yeah. Huh. He put some stuff together, and I'm like, oh shit.
You actually pronunciated enough for us to understand it.
That makes sense. You're actually going to start talking again. Or now. So, I don't know.
At the crib the other day, when he went down for his nap, he normally, he doesn't love napping right now, so he'll, yell for 10 minutes about it, and be like, rah, rah, da-da, mama, da-da, mama, rah, rah. And this other day, he was like, rah, rah, da-da, help! Help! I pulled up the camera. I'm like, are you okay?
Oh God!
No, you're not stuck anywhere. You're fine. You just help.
Yeah, he's getting to that. I picked Enzo up from school one day, and he was in the car with us. You weren't with us, and Enzo gets in the car, and Rhett Holden goes, "Hello," and Enzo goes, he said hello. And I'm like, yeah, he does that now. It's like a little parrot.
Yeah, it's just his new word. Hello, hello, hello. If you walk out of the room or out of your office, he's like, hello, 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 hello. Dada.
Once he's old enough, he can help do the Christmas decorations. Make him go up the ladder.
Oh, God. Yeah. Not with these tall roof lines. They're crazy.
Well, I know we say this every week for the past couple of weeks, but maybe this time next week there will be another addition to this house.
Maybe.
We'll see. We're getting, what are we, Wednesday?
By January 5th.
Yeah, I guess that's the final day, huh?
I think the 3rd or 4th is the final day. But January 5th, we'll have a baby here.
Well, everybody, pray for us. And I hope that it comes sooner rather than later. Because the last thing we want to be doing is having a baby on Christmas Day.
Yeah. It's probably going to be Christmas Day.
It probably is.
Just to be spiteful.
Anyway, we appreciate it. We always appreciate our listeners. And, enjoy the holidays. And
we'll talk again next week. Thanks for listening.
See ya. Thanks, everybody, for listening. You can check us out at
freezermilk.com
or Instagram.
Freezer Milk Podcast.
Until next week, guys. Thanks.
Don't forget, parenting is a trip. We are all here on the journey with you together. Thanks so much for listening.